All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're excited to have you all here. And today's webinar is all about best practices for group mentoring. And if we want to go ahead to the next slide, I can start talking about logistics. So webinar logistics, I'm sure a lot of you have already been on a webinar and know how to use the chat box to raise your hand, mute yourself or unmute yourself. I do see Jonathan, I see your hand up. Is there something that you'd like to share? I don't know if you accidentally or...
Accidentally hit it, sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem. I just wanted to give you the chance. Yes, again, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat throughout the presentation. There will be time for open conversation with questions or discussion. And we just ask that you give us space and grace as we go through this virtual experience together. So you can go to the next one. So just a little bit about us. Who is Maryland? Oh, this is our agenda for the day. First, we're going to talk a little bit about who Maryland Mentor is for those of you who don't know much about us. I'll introduce our team and I'll go over some of our support and resources. I recommend definitely reach out to us if anything speaks to you or you want to learn more about something. And then we'll get into introduction and discussion about group mentoring. We have a cool video from a mentoring program called Men to Boys. And then we'll go over the EEP as well as the EEP for group mentoring. And that includes all best practices and benchmarks based on research. And then we have another video and we'll close out and have some questions answered and discussion. Go ahead. So who is Maryland Mentor? Maryland Mentor is an affiliate of Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership. And we launched in 2018, so we're a little over 2 years old at this point. And basically our shared mission with Mentor National is to increase the quality and quantity of mentoring relationships across the country and to close that mentoring gap, which research tells us is that one out of 3 young people do not have a supportive adult outside their family and their lives. And so we call ourselves, we're in direct service. And so we are sort of the support for the mentoring programs that are doing that direct service for youth. So we can go to the next slide and I'll go over some of, our team. So today I know there's 3 of us on the call today. My name is Dakota Shamblin and I'm the Program Outreach Vista. And then we have Antoine Baguette on the call and he's our Baltimore City Schools Mentoring Vista. And then our trainer for today, who is our very own executive director, is Sadiq Ali. And then we have our other 2 members on our team are Sada Hyla, and she's our operations manager. And then we have Olivia James, who is our marketing and communications Vista. So what does our support look like? If we're not doing the direct work, what are we doing for mentoring programs and for the youth in Maryland? So a big chunk of our work is our technical assistance and our consulting, and this is at no cost. And this is an opportunity for you to be paired with one of our amazing consultants here at Maryland Mentor and to really discuss what your needs are, where you would like to improve, also discovering your assets that you may not be aware that you have, and just building on that. And so that's a great tool for programs that are just starting, for programs that have been around for a few years, as well as programs that have been around, for a decade or more. There's really an opportunity for all to get some benefits out of our technical assistance. We also have our mentoring connector, which is great for connecting volunteers and mentees to programs. And so this is just a database where you get to have a pretty comprehensive profile and volunteers are able to look for a specific program in their area, as well as based on what type of mentoring they want to be a part of or what type of youth those programs serve. And so if you would like to learn a little bit more about that, please message me in the chat. I can send you a link as well as it's on our website as well. We also do trainings, and this is what this is. We have a training calendar and we try to put out 2 to 3 trainings a month, and we really want the feedback from you guys. So we will have a survey at the end, and if there's any topics that you would be interested in learning more about, definitely put that in the survey at the end or in the chat. We do have panels and roundtables. We like to involve youth as well. And then our big one is our EEP, which we'll go over a little bit here in a while. And this is just, again, our benchmarks and best practices for how to run a excellent mentoring program. And then we have our NQMS, which you would do if you were a part of the technical assistance, or you can do it as your program standalone. And this is just, again, kind of hashing out what our assets are, where our strengths are, as well as where we can find areas of improvement. And then there's a few other links. Our website is marylandmentor.net. So we can go to the next one. And this is that EEP that I was just mentioning, and our little postcard of what our technical assistance includes. And the EEP actually has several supplements, including group mentoring. So we'll go over the EEP for group mentoring as well. And so I'm going to pass this to our Executive Director, Sadiq Ali, who will be facilitating today's training. So all you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Hey, so everybody, good morning. Thank you so much, Dakota, for the introduction and the information. As we get into really what is an exciting topic and something that is, really near and dear to my heart, as I've been a part of group mentoring programs personally, both as a mentor as well as a facilitator, as well as a mentee and participant. And that's one of the things that I always like to bring to bear is my own personal mentoring story as we talk about, the different ways that youth development or programs have impacted us, or in some cases the lack thereof. But, my personal mentoring journey started back in middle school. I was a part, had the really fortunate pleasure and an opportunity to participate in a group mentoring program in middle school in Prince George's County, where I grew up, called Umoja. And Umoja is Kiswahili for unity, which is one of the Nguzo Saba, one of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. So this was a group mentoring program that infused elements of, African-American culture, African-centered philosophies of rites of passage. But it also infused this element of camaraderie and togetherness, so much so that many years later, I'm still connected to a number of those young men that we came up together with through that program back at Hyattsville Middle School, in the early 90s, right? So if I may be allowed to date myself a little bit, so the idea of group mentoring has been around for a really long time. And that's really what we're going to have a conversation about today is best practices for group mentoring. And, we really encourage folks to be able to share in the chat box. We have a really cool group today, a really diverse group of folks from all across the state, from all across the region. So we really hope that you'll be open to sharing with us today, bringing to bear your personal experiences, thoughts, questions, comments. As Dakota alluded to, we love to keep our chat box lively and hopping. So, don't be shy in that chat box. And speaking of which, just, let's just warm them fingers up a little bit. Just let me get a 1 if you guys can hear me okay. Just holler if you hear me. Let's wake y'all up a little bit. We got some polls in here as well that we're going to talk through. Okay. Warm them fingers up, y'all. Warm those fingers up. All right, awesome. I see y'all. Thank y'all so much. So the last thing I'll say again before we jump in with our first question and activity is that also, as alluded to by Dakota just a little while ago, really the star of the show today is not myself as much as I am the star of the show in my own mind and with my own theme music and all of that. But I ain't who y'all came to see. I am merely a vessel, and really the star of the show for this morning, as we spend the next couple of moments together, is what we call the group mentoring supplement, again, to the elements of effective practice. So again, if you have not downloaded and read the original elements of effective practice for mentoring 4th edition, please stop doing what you're doing. Type that in your search bar and ensure that you download a copy of that. Back when we did in-person events, we'd always bring a stack of the physical copies of the EEP guide, but it is the seminal research and evidence-based guidebook, to creating and maintaining, as Dakota again alluded to, an excellent best practices-based mentoring program, which encompasses many different formats and structures for your mentoring activities. But the basics, those 6 elements that we're going to talk about today in a group mentoring context, those 6 elements remain consistent and remain the same. So we're going to be talking about that. So again, Dakota is going to drop the links for those in the chat box. But again, the original elements of effective practice, make sure you get it, and not just get it, but read it, really internalize it. And then again, the star of today's show is our group mentoring supplement to the elements of effective practice for mentoring, which again was released actually 1 year ago. If you all look at that release date, best month of the year, maybe second best. Okay, second best. My wife was born in November. This is April, my birth month. So we'll say it's the second best month. Shout out to all the April babies out there. Okay, so let's jump in. So how would you all define group mentoring, right? Because we can't have a conversation without first defining our key term, the keyest of all key terms for today, which is that of group mentoring. So how would you all define group mentoring? So we would like to invite you all to participate in our poll everywhere deal here. So you can either visit pollev.com/MarylandMint430. That's a mouthful, but you can type that right in your browser and participate that way, or you can text Maryland Mint. So text that message, Maryland Mint, to 22333, and you can participate in the poll everywhere that way. This is open-ended, so put your thoughts in there. How would you define group mentoring? How would you define group mentoring? Starting off, question number 1. And don't worry if you're technologically challenged like I am. We're gonna give this a couple minutes. How would you define group mentoring? Also, if you cannot access the poll, feel free to type your response in the chat box as well. Myself and Dakota will monitor the chat box. So don't feel intimidated. Don't feel pressure. Okay, just again, feel free to participate in the chat box or in the poll everywhere poll. How would you define group mentoring? Somebody's gonna get this poll everywhere thing. I know it. I believe in y'all. A community of support. Love it, Linda. Love it, Linda. A community of support. Christy says, teaching through role modeling. Love that as well. Okay, so we got some fingers warming up in the chat box. Somebody gonna get this poll. You know, this is us trying to be extra and get on board with all this cool tech. That's what the poll everywhere thing is about. Doesn't look like it's working too well yet. Somebody gonna break through. A group of mentees with a facilitator or facilitators discuss topics. Love it. That was a very, very clean definition. I like that. Very, very specific. Like that a lot, Jonathan. Thank you so much. Linda, we just figured everybody had their cell phone in their hand, you know, like folks do on most webinars, except this one. You can text as well. Oh, I don't know. Dakota, did we activate the survey? Did we activate that?
Yes, I did activate it. It says it's activated.
Katharina said that she added this, but several mentors working with multiple mentees. Awesome. Thank you, Olivia, too, for posting that link.
I don't know why it's not.
Don't even worry about it, y'all. The best laid plans. But let's keep the conversation going in the chat box. Feel free to unmute yourself as well, because that's what we do, y'all. What we just say, space and grace. And we go with the flow. We roll with the punches over here. If anybody wants to raise your hand or just jump in, unmute yourself. How would you define group mentoring? We got some good stuff so far in the chat box. Okay. We're still defining group mentoring, everybody. Positive multi-peer influence. I like that a lot. See, we're starting to see some similarities in the responses as well, which is awesome.
Hello, Mr. Ali. I would like to input my
Please,
answer verbally.
please.
I would say that it's incorporating diverse ideals within a group setting.
Diverse ideals, yes, yes, because mentees aren't just necessarily hearing from one person. That's awesome. That's awesome. Learning together, Linda. Linda, you're on fire in the chat box. Building up people. Okay, awesome, awesome. We're gonna give this one more minute. How would you define group mentoring? So again, learning together, a community. I really like that. A community of support. Right, learning together, diverse perspectives we just heard. A group of mentors or facilitators working with a group of young people or mentees. Positive multi-peer influence, right? Which is again, back to that together piece. These are amazing responses. We're gonna keep it pushing. So survey says, right, the official definition of group mentoring is defined as, again, from our Elements of Effective Practice supplement, a mentoring program, right, which is a structured interaction in which a mentor or a small number of mentors works with multiple youth in an ongoing set group. Now, I want to stop here for a moment, even before we get into the different models for group mentoring. There's a lot of really key stuff right in this simple definition, a lot of which, again, I'm so excited because we heard some of these alluded to in our responses just now. A mentoring program. So for the purposes of this conversation, and this is something that is so important for us to note, is that here at Maryland Mentor, and again, increasingly across the mentoring field, across the country and across the world, the acknowledgement has to be made very clear early on that there are two types of overall mentoring. There is formal mentoring and informal or natural mentoring. Okay, again, I'm gonna say that again. There's two types overarchingly. Formal mentoring, which is mentoring through a program, a structured, ongoing set group of folks, but there's also where the majority overwhelmingly of mentoring happens is in an informal setting. So acknowledging that there are a ton of informal mentoring groups that happen all the time. There's an uncle, right, who has a nephew, and that nephew has some friends, and that uncle once a month takes that group of young men out to a park or a play or a ball game. That's an informal group mentoring situation. There's no program structure, there's no permission slips or anything like that. So it's not a program per se, but that is absolutely informal group mentoring. And I want to make sure that we acknowledge both that informal group mentoring happening, as well as all the informal individual one-to-one mentoring happening as well. But in this group mentoring definition, we're talking a mentoring program, which is a structured, formal setup, right, in which some adults work with a set group of young people. And again, this is for one mentor in a group mentoring setting or a multiple, right? Multiple caring adults in that sort of group mentoring setting, working with multiple young people, again, in an ongoing set group. So that's where we want to start and sort of anchor our conversation is in that top definition. Now, inside of group mentoring, there are three models for group mentoring. One is the standard group, right? Which is one mentor working with a group of anywhere between 4 and 6 young people, sometimes many more than that. I've seen group mentoring programs that there might be one mentor who, again, gets it in their heart. Listen, I have enough time and energy to work with. My cap number is, 10 young people, 10 young ladies or 10 young men, and that's one mentor. But again, that 4 to 6 is somewhat of a standard guidance, just in terms of widely recognized youth development ratios, right, between adults and young people. Co-mentoring is when we're talking about, right, more like a small group mentoring situation where you have 2 to 3 mentors, right, or those caring adults working with a larger group of young people. Now you're talking 8 to 12, but again, I've seen that as many as 10 to 20 with 2 or 3 dedicated, consistent mentors. Lastly, you have a team mentoring situation where you have a group of mentors with a specific and complementary set of skills working with a group of 15 plus youth. And another sort of variation of team mentoring is, in some cases, you might have multiple mentors to either one or a small group of mentees, where then those mentors really share some of the responsibility. They share the timing. So you might have 4 mentors to a group of 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 young people. And those mentors essentially almost take turns. There's a big group relationship. So in other words,
Hey, Sadiq, you're like chopping up for some reason, but I can't, yeah, we can't hear you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, but I know there's a little bit of an echo because I'm in this big conference room right now. What was the last thing that you heard, Dakota?
I couldn't tell you right now.
Anybody in the chat box? We're gonna try this. Okay.
You were speaking of team mentoring, and the numbers.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, let's try to work through this technical difficulties. I am going to stop my screen share for one moment. We'll try to switch this earpiece. Give us 1 second, folks.
okay, how's that? How's that, Dakota?
Sounds good. You're good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're back on. We're back on, folks. Again, thank you all so much for your patience. So, team mentoring. As I was going down this path, team mentoring is, again, sometimes it'll be a group of anywhere from 1 to 4 mentors, either working with sometimes 1 to 4 at an even ratio young people. But sometimes you'll see a larger group of mentors in a team setting, anywhere from 1 to 4, working with anywhere from 4 to 8 young people, where again, the responsibilities, the timing, et cetera, can be shared. So in other words, again, if we have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday evening and 2 of the mentors aren't there, 2 of the mentors are there, and that session can still carry on. And that works even better if those are playing. So, hey, here's our group, but you know what? On the second Tuesdays, hey, some of us are going to be here, and on the first Tuesdays or the third Tuesday, some of us, the other mentors are going to be here. So these are a couple of the different types of group mentoring models and how they can potentially look. So wanted to pause here for a moment for any thoughts or feedback. How have you all seen these different models manifest? Which, for those that have group mentoring programs, which actually should have been our first question, is, so let me ask a 2-parter. Number one, who with us today is either a part of a group mentoring program or is currently either leading or participating in a group mentoring program? Let's start there.
I'm not sure if you saw, but Michelle in the chat box, she had a question.
Okay, nice, nice. So Michelle said, is there a number within the solo model that you don't want to exceed? You know, Michelle, that's a great question. And it really comes down to that individual. There are some folks that, you know, they got a higher bandwidth, right? They can sort of handle, build relationships with a larger number of young people. There's also something to be said for some of the challenges that those young people might be going through, right? Or what some of those young people are looking to get from the relationship, you see. So young people with significant challenges, right? And again, that runs the gambit in terms of how you define those challenges or how they define those challenges. It might be better to keep it to a smaller number of young people. But again, I really put that on the program structure and the mentor themselves, because again, just everybody's different. But again, that 4 to 6 is just really a guidance based on, again, traditional sort of adult to youth ratios.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you for the question. So who here, so we got, so CEO Spivey says that they are looking to implement group mentoring into their program. Kia said that she leads groups varying size from 3 to 6 in each group. Awesome. Brianne currently working with a youth mentoring program. I Am Mentality. Awesome. I'm super familiar with Darren and I Am Mentality. Awesome. And Lataria is doing a lot of informal group mentoring. Okay, awesome. So of these 3 models for group mentoring, Sheldon, okay, I'm just making sure. All right, Sheldon, just making sure. So of these 3 models of group mentoring, what are you seeing in terms of your own programs right now that is working well, or what sort of, which of these models are you all using mostly in your programs right now? Kind of the second part to that question.
Mr. Ali, my program is using the 10 mentoring. We have currently 17 girls in our Georgia nonprofit organization, but we're looking to expand to the Maryland area.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then how many adult volunteers or mentors with those 17 girls?
Currently, we have 10 adults in the organization that mentors.
Awesome. And Kia says her organization dictates the standard group model. Kia, do I mean that is you and a group of young people? is that what I'm reading?
Yes, that would be me. And
Okay.
I actually do groups on Wednesday, which is the asynchronous learning for our district.
That's
So
right.
I do school-based mentoring.
That's great, Kia. Where are you based, Kia?
Queen Anne's County, Maryland.
Okay, awesome. And Katarina says we have a one-to-one, but operationally it looks like a hybrid of standard group and co-mentoring. Awesome. And this is the beauty, right? This is why, again, trainings and conversations like this are so important, because each one of these different models, you know, there's pros and cons. Just like there are pros and cons of group mentoring as a practice versus our traditional one-to-one mentoring. So it's all about matching up what existing assets you have with what it is that you're looking to achieve versus what is it that the young people are looking to get, and what is it that you sort of have as a vision for your program and for your service. But being armed with these different, you know, these different tools and these different ideas of how it can go, I think just collectively just strengthens our ability to do what needs to be done. So this is good stuff. Okay, so we're gonna move on here then. So what are some examples? And we started alluding to that again. I don't know if we want to try the poll everywhere again. But what are some examples of group mentoring? And again, I think you all have already given some.
I did activate it. I'll try and see if it works on my end.
Okay, let's see if anybody. Or again, here in the chat box as well. What are some examples of group mentoring? Either types, by name, etc. Before and after school tutoring certainly could be an example. What are some examples of group mentoring? Ah, see, this one's working. Boys and Girls Club, absolutely. Girls and Boy Scouts, great one, thank you. Your troop leaders, I was a Boy Scout growing up. Your troop leaders are absolutely group mentors. Scouts, look, great minds, you all. The PAL centers, yes. Team sports, thank you. Inspirational speaking engagements. Now, Jonathan, I would say yes, as long as those, it's a set group of young people experiencing that together. And then if it's a situation where each week there's a different speaker or there's a different presenter to the same group, and then there's some discussion, I think the inspirational speaking engagements can certainly be a part of it as one of your group mentoring activities, Jonathan. YMCA, again, team sports, right? Your basketball team is a group mentoring. That's an example of group mentoring. The head coach is the lead mentor, but any successful team has a team of assistant coaches that each have a specialty. In the NBA, I'm a big NBA fan. In the NBA context, there's sometimes individual coaches that just work with one or two of the more difficult, shall we say, personalities on the team. And that's their only job, is to essentially act as a mentor for some of, again, the more volatile, mercurial personalities that might exist in a team structure. But absolutely, team sports is an excellent example. School clubs and organizations, a great example. Because our group mentoring absolutely should have the opportunity for youth leadership of those groups. Didactic education, whoever that was, I'm not that swift. So you're gonna have to define didactic. I think I know what it means, but whoever didactic education was, break that down for us in the back of the classroom.
I'm talking, you're silly. I'm talking just general education, man. You have a curriculum like, the 40 developmental assets that you administer in a group setting.
Awesome. So again, like that didactic, right? That education setting, a
Right, educational setting.
There we go. You break it down for us, Brother Sheldon. You break it down for us. Youth groups, youth ministry. I love the youth ministry example. Absolutely. Like we said, after school clubs, after school organizations. My first mentoring program that I alluded to early on, Umoja, was an after school deal. It was an after school group mentoring. And this is where I really enjoy the conversation very much around to our OST partners and friends. Folks always are like, hey, if your mentoring program meets after school, is it an OST/after school program, or is it a mentoring program? What's the answer there, folks? If your mentoring program, your group mentoring program meets after school, are you an after school program or are you a mentoring program? It's a bonus point question for y'all. If your mentoring program meets after school, are you a mentoring program or are you an after school program or an OST program, an out of school time program? See what the survey says. What's the survey say? What's everybody else in the chat box say? We got one that says both. We got one that says both. We got another that says both. We got a plus on the both. Sheldon says the same. Absolutely. Absolutely, it is one and the same. And I think that there's an opportunity for mentoring programs to look at themselves more as after school programs in the school-based setting, and sometimes in a community-based settings, which also opens the door to greater resource sharing as well. So really, really good conversation. And these are some great examples, just scrolling back through here. Scouts, team sports, YMCA, youth ministry, speaking engagements, PAL centers, tutoring, education, didactic education, after school clubs and organizations. Awesome stuff, awesome stuff. Okay, so here we wanted to pause for a moment and play for you all a cool video example of an after school based group mentoring program. So hopefully this will play, and let me know if you guys can hear this.
The name of the organization is the Men to Boys organization. However, under the Men to Boys organization, we have the Men to Boys Group Mentoring Program. And the mission for Men to Boys Group Mentoring Program is to provide information to what we consider to be an underserved demographic in young males between the ages of 11 and 18. What we specifically want to achieve is to successfully help young men develop teen skills, develop their teen skills, develop as teenagers into young males, into what we consider to be young males with a constructive future ahead of them. What about the next one? Student loans. What's student loans?
For college.
Exactly. Student loans to pay for college, because college is another one of those things that the expense costs so much that rarely do people have that money in their pocket to pay for it. So they go to the bank and get a loan.
Just from personal experience and talking to some of the other volunteers, I've seen some major changes in that we can see attitude adjustments, we can see behavior adjustments. So we are making a difference, because a lot of times they need to see that male role model. And you know, as you know, there's a lot of single moms out there, and they're looking for somebody that their young boy can kind of relate to, look up to, outside of what we see on TV as far as sports or, you know, entertainers. It's now on a local level, and I think that's one of the big differences that we're going to be able to make here.
I've learned how to be a little bit more successful in life. Like, we learn about financing and saving our money up, and we've been learning about loans and how they can benefit us, and then we have to pay the people back who gave it to us.
I've been here for like half of last year and the starting of this year. And we learned about like colleges, like how to like spend your money, like stuff that could help you like later on in life.
I've been involved in coaching youth sports for 22 years. Coaching youth sports was a way for me to learn how to engage this demographics, this age group of boys. One of the things that I've always considered to be important for coaches to do is to have an idea of what their players are doing off the court as well as on the court.
I've seen personally, from an adult standpoint, the issues in terms of money and the challenges that adults have. And what I figured out was a lot of the things that we do as adults comes from what we did or did not learn as we were young kids.
Okay. So let's talk about this video for a little bit. So number one, what do we observe? What do we observe about this particular example of group mentoring? What do we observe about that? It was a short video. I know the volume was a little low, but what do we observe about that video, about that setting, and in particularly, yeah, there were a couple of key things that we want to hone in. I'm not going to say too much first. And again, feel free to unmute yourself as well or raise your hand and we can call on you. What do we observe? What do we observe from that video?
I can, it's Lori.
Hey, Lori.
Hi there. Wait, if I can undo, I don't know if I can. My thing's not working. But anyway, well, at first they were providing actual practical information, which I think is very helpful, especially in this day and age with being virtual and everything. It's like hard to, the regular things that they might be talking about, which are school related, like especially the girls with pure relationships, they don't really have the same problems in the last year and a half because they don't have that girl bullying stuff and also just conflict with teachers like they did. But they want practical information. They want help with academics. And then of course, always with college. They're always, yearning for information as much as they can get about the next phase, especially if they're high school.
That's great. That's great. I love that. Practical information. And I think that goes back to, again, the comment that Sheldon made about the didactic education. In that sort of group setting, there's an opportunity to share different types of information and exposure. What else did we observe? Is that your hand up there? Whose hand is that? Jonathan.
Hi, it's Jonathan Lego, the Push Initiative. I think one of the things that I learned from that is that mentors can learn from a variety of life experiences to give them, the tools they need to become a mentor. Like the gentleman was talking about being involved with sports for 25 years. That taught him how to, be prepared to be a mentor. And I think there's a lot of different ways that people can do that. That's what I learned.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. He called himself a coach. And that is a very, very important mindset for us to take when working in a group mentoring setting. He looked at himself as a coach, called himself coach. Great call, Jonathan. Ernest.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Actually, what I did see is it was a small group. It wasn't a whole lot of people. He definitely was keeping the young man's attention. He gave him something tangible, and then they followed up with him, letting them know what they learned from individual discussion. One of the other good things is that they all had some type of uniformity, meaning they all had shirts to be proud of what organization they're part of. That reflects a great deal, especially when you're working with youth, when they feel as if they are part of a very unique group.
Thank you so much. You guys are hitting on some really, really key points. There was some uniformity, right? Meaning that there was a sense of group norms, which is one of the most powerful things about a group mentoring program, right? And one of the things that you absolutely want to make sure that you do. We're going to get into the pro tips here in a little bit, but being able to establish those group norms, 1000%, why young people are attracted to any sort of group is the opportunity to feel a part of something. Thank you so much for that, Ernest. That is excellent point. And there was follow-up information. Is it Lavoni? I want to make sure I say your name right.
It's Lavalne, sir.
Lavone. I was close, but it's still wrong. Thank you so much.
No problem. I was going to say that the mentor mentioned the fact that children end up being adults, and it all depends on the things that they didn't learn or that they learned as they were growing up. So I think the ability to be able to relate to the mentees on their level where they need help, so that they can relate to the information that you're trying to give out to them.
Beautiful. This is some really good feedback. I wanted to shout out as well, right? Because there are some amazing group mentoring programs right here in Maryland that I wanted to shout out for doing some really amazing work, because this program is based down in South Florida, right outside of Fort Lauderdale, Margate, Florida. But we got some really amazing examples here locally that are doing some, again, amazing work. So Project Numa in Baltimore, Seeds of Promise, Mentoring Mentors, I Am Mentality, shout out. Mentoring to Manhood of Prince George's County, Brothers Inc. in Montgomery County, Young Men of Distinction on the Shore, Reality Check down in Prince George's County, Glue, Girls Like Us Evolving, Young Queens on the Rise, Lily Sisterhood, and so many others. And the point here is that we can learn a little bit from all these different programs and how they structure things, how they follow up, how their programs from an exposure standpoint. Sheldon, I see that in the chat box. There were African-American youth and there were African-American mentors. So that gets to that exposure piece, right? As they say, right, folks, you can never be what you don't see. So in bringing in folks that look like the mentees, but are successful in life, you know, by different sorts of measures, that allows those young people to then see themselves and project into the future. So very, very powerful stuff. Okay, we're gonna keep rolling. Great combo, great combo. And we're starting to get the other kind of key point here too, before we move on, is that we're starting to get to some of those best practices that we're gonna talk a little bit about. And again, this is just a did you know moment in terms of statistics wide around the prevalence and the growing prevalence of group mentoring. While only serving 19% of all mentoring programs, group mentoring as a model, as an institution, has positively impacted upwards of 35% of all mentees, which is just slightly over the percentage of those served exclusively in one-to-one mentoring models. So again, this is telling us, the latest research is that group mentoring is now the most widely sort of model for mentoring that we have in our country right now by a hair, but it wasn't always that case, right? That wasn't always the situation. So group mentoring has a number of merits, but one thing that I'm gonna say right now, and I'm gonna echo this a couple more times in the course of our conversation, because more folks are doing it, or because it is quote unquote easier to do, does not mean it's easier to maintain. In that, as you design your group mentoring program, do not think that it's less work. In some regards, it's more work. Because again, as Sheldon and some other folks have pointed out in the chat box, you have to be very prepared for these sessions in order to maximize the outcomes and the effectiveness. Our young people can detect when we're unprepared. And obviously finding that fine line between being prepared and yet not being too rigid, and still maintaining some flexibility for that conversation, for those deep dives, for young folks to really get comfortable and familiar with the material and with the information. Yes, but many folks think that, hey, I can just start a group mentoring program tomorrow and it's gonna be all good, or it's gonna be less work. You know, I don't have to go out and recruit mentors. None of that is the case. So I wanted to make sure that we're clear on that. Group mentoring is more popular as a model, but that doesn't mean that it's easier. It doesn't mean that it's less work. So I want to be very, very clear on that. So in one word, this will be our final poll, right? But in one word, what are some of the benefits to group mentoring? And we've already talked through a couple of them, and then we're going to get into some of these. We're going to get into some of these best practices. What are some benefits to group mentoring? Inspiration, for sure, for sure. Dakota, we had one, you know, we had one at first.
Yeah,
Like this,
it's activated, and I see that there's 2 responses, but I don't know why it's not showing up.
I can't see it here. I wonder why I can't see it on the screen. Let's see here. Okay, hold on. Okay. We got, hold on. I'm over here. I'm over here doing something. Okay, look at that. I might have been the problem before. Ideals, opportunity. Can you all see the screen? We back on?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, awesome. Okay, diverse, peer learning, opportunity, camaraderie, flexibility, community. Yes. Young people are excited to join something. This is our opportunity to create positive culture, a positive gang. A gang only becomes a negative thing when it's committing crimes, man. But this, we just call positive gangs group. We just call them reading clubs and bridge clubs and basketball teams, right? But this is our opportunity to create that camaraderie, to create a group culture, a culture, Katerina, of collaboration, of flexibility, again, of community. These are excellent. Let's get a couple more benefits on here. Again, I don't know what happened to our poll. It was working there for a second. Oh, there we go. See, this is not refreshing. Janky technology. Love and respect. Here we go. We got some other ones in here. Time, belonging. That is a powerful word, belonging. Commitment sharing. Right? When you're a part of a group that is sticky, right? A group that is, yes, Suzanne, unified, then you have some shared commitment. You have some shared values. You have some, many times, some shared goals. And there is a system in place for supporting one another. That's that peer piece, right? That's that peer support piece. The shared responsibility, yes. This is a great list. This is a really, really great list. All right, I'm gonna try to refresh this one more time. Let's see here. Okay, we got some other ones here.
You need to save that presentation. That is a nice slide, how that comes out from the responses. I love that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hopefully I don't break it before the time, before we get to save it. But ideals, this is excellent. So I would ask you all, which of these characteristics, right? Which of these benefits are present right now in your group mentoring programs? Which of these can you build out more? And then we're going to get into the best practices. But I want us to have a little bit of a conversation. Another way to look at this question is, how can we build these benefits into our program design more intentionally? How can we build these elements into our program design more intentionally? Which of these are present in your program? If you see something that isn't present, how can you go about inserting that, building that in more intentionally?
I like the point that you made about how group mentoring isn't less work, that it does require more work. And I like the idea that we're going from a one-on-one to a group mentoring, building in those same components seem like they'd be applicable in that same environment. So making sure that we kind of hold on to that, it still requires the same amount of work and commitment.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm telling you, I've seen it. Folks are like, man, listen, let's just start this little group mentoring program. I'm like, you do know that's a lot of work as well. And again, our young people deserve it. So they deserve our best. So no, thank you for calling attention to that. Those additional benefits to group mentoring. So again, what are you seeing in your own program that's working well? What are you seeing where we can incorporate some more based on some of these benefits? How can we do that more intentionally? That's the question. Those are the questions right now. Careful recruitment. Absolutely. Jonathan, speak on that. Careful recruitment of who? Because hopefully we're carefully recruiting everyone that comes in contact with our young people. What do you mean? Break that down for us. Careful recruitment.
Sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulties here.
Join the club.
I'm building a program right now, and recruitment is such a major part. And there's so many different factors. You have to make a recruitment actual recruitment plan when you build the program. And there's, like you said, there's a tremendous amount that goes into it. But you got to be really careful, like criminal background checks and making sure that the recruiter matches with the mentee. I'm sorry, the mentor matches with the mentee. And you want certain attributes in your, in your mentor. Those attributes can be just as simple as a kind heart and positive, but also you want some experience that matches the goals and the aspirations of your mentee. It's a lot that goes into it, and I'm working on that now, so it kind of resonates with what I'm going through.
That's right. That's right. And Jonathan, I believe we have you paired with one of our Maryland Mentor consultants, correct?
That's correct. Jeff Walker, I'm working with him on building the program, and he's done tremendous amount to help me. So
that's awesome.
It's been a great experience.
No, that's amazing. So y'all heard that. If you have not signed up for Maryland Mentor Technical Assistance, there was an impromptu endorsement, and I believe Jeff Walker, our consultant, is with us right now as well. But what I will say is that Jonathan just hit several really key points, again, in terms of the planning aspect, thinking through, again, what those mentors, what profile, right, do you want to be looking for in your group mentors? How does that profile match with what, again, your young people want from the program? Which is, again, very important, which is why I asked careful recruiting, because that careful recruiting, Sheldon, that's right. Oh, so we got a whole TA crew here. But our recruiting goes both ways. It's not just for mentors, but it's also for our mentees, our young people that are participating in the program. We should be recruiting them and keeping in mind what it is that they're looking for in terms of their short-term goals, their midterm goals, their long-term goals, and ensuring that we're building that material in via those guest speakers or via the different experiences, right? Or the background of the mentors that we want to expose our young people to. So it all goes hand in hand. Absolutely.
Ernest.
Intentionality.
Yes, this is Ernest. I had a question too. Not a question, just a statement. I know that for us, we use our individual risk management plan, which actually we do an assessment on the mentors as well as the mentees. One, to ensure that whatever we're providing for the mentees, we can provide that type of service. Because some mentees, we may not be able to do mentoring with them. They may need different services that we may not have the capacity for, and vice versa, as the previous speaker indicated, in reference to the mentors. Background screening, things of that sort, because as a nonprofit, we have higher risk management issues that ensure that we cover ourselves and make sure that we are protecting not only our mentees, but also our mentors and the organization itself.
Excellent point. This is why, again, hearing from you all as the audience is so important. Several really key points that Ernest just brought to us, not least of which is the idea that when you are in the midst of facilitating or overseeing or leading a group mentoring program, one of those additional benefits is the ability to collaborate with other service providers. So someone mentioned earlier tutoring. So if my general group mentoring program is really focused on, let's call it just exposure, right? We have a group mentoring program, and our objective is to expose our young women to high performing women of color from the community, from the business community, so on and so forth. But through the course of interacting with these young women, you might realize, you know what? Hey, they could benefit from some tutoring services. So because I have a quote unquote captive audience with my young women every Wednesday or every other Saturday or whenever I meet with this group, now I can incorporate very easily other services and supports. So, hey, someone else has a tutoring service. I don't do tutoring. I don't really know how to tutoring. I was actually not that great of a student. So let me partner with a local tutoring organization that can come And now we can do some extra sessions around tutoring for those additional supports. So now my core program remains unchanged, but I have now taken the opportunity with my group mentoring model and setup and structure to layer in additional supports from my community, additional supports from my group of parents, right? Additional supports, so on and so forth. So an additional benefit that I really wanted to highlight from what Ernest has shared with us is the ability to layer in additional supports. Excellent point. Okay. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on in this conversation. So group mentoring, right? Here's how. So it's less time intensive, right? In terms of the sheer number of hours spent managing multiple mentors. So from a purely mathematical standpoint, it is true. It is less time intensive from a monitoring and support perspective, right? Because if I have to monitor 30 individual mentors and 30 individual mentees, it's definitely more time intensive. So group mentoring cuts down time in that regard. But again, the prep time is still really critical. So again, group mentoring cuts down on staff time and time spent with mentees, because the model is collaborative and shared, uses the power of peer relationships. Someone in our chat box, and I think that was in our word cloud as well, spoke to this. In a group mentoring setting, we have the opportunity through, again, really through driving peer and group norms, those peer relationships now becomes as important to the young person's development as the adults in the relationship, because it's not just a young person thing, because a lot of us as adults, we're in that same kind of bandwagon. You know, I want to look cool to my peer group. So whatever the peer group, and here's the key though, whatever the peer group and the group at large deems as cool, that becomes the behavior that gets duplicated in that group. So through those peer relationships, all it takes is a couple of the young people in the group to say, you know what, we off that 2.0 stuff. We off that 1.5 stuff. What we on in this group now is 3.0s. That becomes then the standard for the group. And now the peers will be in a race to each other towards that 3.0 or to that, you know, honor roll or whatever that goal is. We're all going to try to get our first jobs by the time we're 16, and we're going to all get our summer jobs together. So that power of peer relationships is critical as they, again, develop a relationship with one another that forges accountability. And then these relationships usually carry on beyond the mentoring program. As I share with you all, I'm friends to this day with probably half a dozen or so grown men now that I first met back in the early 90s in middle school via our after school group mentoring program, Umoja. Attracts more volunteers. Some volunteers prefer to work in a group as opposed to a one-on-one setting for a number of reasons. Not least of which, again, is the flexibility that it could potentially provide, right? And they can use their strength, as we'll see in our next video. You can use that strength to really pour into a group. And you can also, because it's a group mentoring setting, you can really look at, again, incorporating the micro mentoring mindset via guest speakers. So if you have a set group, there's also mentoring male teens in the hood here in Baltimore. They have guest speakers almost every week to their program. So they do group activities, and there's a set group of mentors that works with the young people in the program. But every week or every other week, there's a guest speaker that comes and speaks about a different topic. So those are mentors for that day, no doubt. So you get the benefit of attracting those folks as well. And then again, as folks have already alluded to, mentees get multiple viewpoints because group mentoring supports a diversity of perspectives, allowing the protege or that mentee to get ideas from more than just one mentor. Really powerful stuff. So some best practices. So let's jump into this, right? We're already getting close to time. Glad you guys are with us. So recruitment. So our 6 elements of effective practice for every setting, right? They are screening, right? They are recruitment. Actually, I said those in reverse. It's recruitment, screening, matching, monitoring, training, and closure. And we're going to talk about each one of these best practices in the group mentoring setting and context. And remember, I didn't say this, I normally do, but as is the case with all trainings, especially one as short as 90 minutes, this is not the ending. This is not the end all be all. This is the beginning of you all's process of researching and reading and educating yourselves about what's next. We also, again, as we alluded to earlier, anyone who would like to work with us hand in hand to implement these best practices, drop a note in the chat box and we can follow up with you and potentially work with you all to apply for technical assistance. So we can pair you with one of our consultants like Imani, Yassine, or Jeff Walker to support you all implementing these best practices. But from a recruitment standpoint and group mentoring, recruitment in this standpoint, or from this standpoint, prioritizes the recruitment of individuals that have employment or experience or training in group facilitation. That is working with a group. Some adults, they get intimidated by a group of young people. They're much better one-to-one. So asking that early on is key, right? You know, maybe they didn't play team sports. Maybe they were more of the golf type, right? They were the tennis player. They didn't play, you know, football, basketball, lacrosse sort of situation, but we want to ask that. Empathic listening, strong social skills. In a group setting, it tends to be, right? It's a group setting. So mentors that are more comfortable in those larger group settings in a more social situation, that's going to be super important. And then also, as we already mentioned, they've got to be comfortable, though you might not necessarily have your, should I say, your extra group mentor. So if there's a lead group mentor, so to speak, that person is generally the sort of the lead facilitator, if you will. So, you know, not all programs have multiple facilitators. You can, and I certainly encourage you to. So again, that way the responsibility is shared. But if you do intend, though, to have a more of an educational component each week, a session on a particular topic, recruiting mentors that have, again, that facilitation or that curriculum sort of implementation background could be helpful, or at bare minimum, they got to have an interest in it. And then one of the pro tips, lastly, is target recruiting efforts towards active and or retired teacher, military leaders, trainers, counselors to support you in your group mentoring endeavor. So I'll pause here for a moment. What else would you all add to, again, best practices, right? And again, this is directly from our supplement on group mentoring. Listen, don't worry, we're gonna keep it pushing. You guys will be sent these slides too, and these will be available online. Screening. Yeah, go ahead, Ernest.
Oh yeah, I was just add. I'm also, you know, documenting what works, what doesn't work. You know, maintain metrics so you know if you are effective in certain areas, and two, to ensure that you have accountability. If you are sharing certain information, if it's documentation, things of that sort, and as they begin to share that information, you know that if that program or even that lesson didn't work, then you know, how do I redo it? And also ask for the mentor's feedback through surveys and or some type of poll. So if you're not reaching them, you'll know how to go back and try to a different way to reach them in a different way.
Absolutely. And you on fire today too, Ernest. So Ernest, again, just said something so critical. And what I heard, I'm going to try to distill it down. Leverage the strengths of your mentors. Get their feedback, get their insight, because they might be able to create a lesson that is more, you know, more relevant, more impactful than maybe what you had planned. So again, maintaining your flexibility as that program leader, and again, leveraging the experiences, the expertise of your team of mentors is critical, as well as tracking what's working and what's not. Excellent points. And then Christy on this slide as well said, hey, adding business owners to the list of potential recruitment targets. Excellent point, especially from the sort of guest speaker perspective. Business owners love to come and talk about their businesses and their journey. They love it. Great call. So screening, really quickly, screening. The program should assess if prospective mentees would benefit specifically from being in a group program with peers, or if an exclusively adult mentoring relationship, one-to-one, or some other intervention might be a better fit. Like I said, typically, very, very often, we think of recruitment and screening only from a mentor perspective. And again, nothing could be further from the truth in terms of being necessary, and certainly it's not a best practice. We should be thinking about recruiting and screening our young people as well. And this is a case in point in terms of there are some young people that, again, they're not into big groups. So that is probably a young person that is better suited for a more traditional one-to-one relationship. Or when you talk about the hybrid, which we're seeing more and more from traditional mentoring programs like a Big Brothers Big Sisters, or like, you know, just a traditional one-to-one program where they have a traditional one-on-one mentoring relationship, but then once a month or once a quarter, the big group of mentors will get together and engage in a group learning or a group outing or a group field trip. So it is in some regards the best of both worlds. So you have a one-to-one deal, but then you also are incorporating some elements, right, in terms of those rituals, those exposures, having a handshake or a saying, a mantra. These are all pieces that you definitely want to think about incorporating into the program and screening for. And then a pro tip here is implementing a personality test. Myers-Briggs, for example, as an indicator for what type of personality this young person has, and whether or not they would be excited about a group mentoring situation. We're gonna roll through the rest of these. So please drop some comments in the chat box. Training, big deal. What you all are doing today with us. Training, from a group mentoring perspective, if there's one or more mentor in a group, training on group facilitation skills, including how the mentor partnership will work, planning and leading activities together. So again, that way there is a shared responsibility, right? Because so many of our mentors, they're doing it all by themselves, especially in a group mentoring setting. Share some of that responsibility. Let's get some of our other mentors trained on conflict resolution and leading activities. Big deal. And then pro tip, you can have mentors use collaborative apps like, Google, Slack, or WhatsApp for easier communication, coordination. We have a GroupMe for a group mentoring program that I am personally involved in. It is really a mix of formal and informal, but it is certainly a group mentoring program that is have elements of traditional African Center rites of passage, where my son is involved. But we all the leaders of the program, all the Babas, we communicate via a GroupMe situation. So that's the training piece. Matching, we've had conversation about this all throughout our time together today, but if the mentees know each other prior to joining the program, staff should consider the youth's prior history together when assigning them to mentoring groups. This is really important, especially in a context if there's been a negative relationship or there's been some bullying, or right, if you think of rival neighborhoods, we've worked with a program in DC that there was some really significant neighborhood to neighborhood violence. We see that from time to time in Baltimore as well, where you got a young person from this particular community, and you have another from another community, and there's some beef, there's some conflict there. So creating a safe space, number one, in that program is really critical, because we've seen those conflicts get resolved in a very thoughtful way inside a group program. But being aware, being cognizant of some of those dynamics is going to be really important to ensure that everybody remains safe and that we're able to meet young people where they are. And again, the pro tip here obviously is not avoiding, but addressing and letting mentees know that you're aware and supportive of the change overall. We had a chat here. Ongoing training is absolutely key. Monitoring and support. Program staff members should also ask mentees about their relationship with the mentors and the other members of the group. So one of the tips that we always give in a group mentoring setting is that there should be some one-on-one time with each young person in that program. This is all under monitoring and support, because remember, there is great power. And I mentioned this earlier in terms of pros and cons from group mentoring to one-to-one mentoring. And a one-to-one mentoring, that young person really feels when that mentor is like really with it and they get it, that mentee, that protege, they feel super supported. They feel heard, they feel valued, they feel listened to. So we have to be mindful that in a group setting, especially the less vocal young people, sometimes they're off in the corner while the majority of the group is over here. So having those one-to-one check-ins at least monthly with all young people involved in a group mentoring program is critical because they have feedback for you about not only how they're doing, but how the program is going. They have feedback for you about the relationship that they have with the other adults in the program. So those one-to-one check-ins are critically important, even in the group mentoring setting, because you're going to hear a lot from them that you don't get a chance to suss out in the group mentoring setting. And pro tip, one of the questions that you could ask during those one-to-one check-ins with your young people is, as mentees, to evaluate their mentors like they would at their job, which is a really, really fun thing to do. Hey, how's the program going? How do you like it? Again, we don't ask that enough of our young people. And then lastly, closure. The program should provide mentors with strategies for closing each meeting with rituals, with the rituals that encourage reflection on the group members' relationship, their personal growth, and allow each member to say goodbye in ways that mirror the ultimate closure of the group, which obviously you can do some sort of closing program as the group moves from milestone to milestone. But just think about that. And we'll see this example in a quick video before we head towards conclusion. But again, those special handshakes, those special mantras, having the young people in the program create those closing rituals is even more engaging, right? Have them create the special handshake because those are the things that carry on throughout the group when the adults aren't around, right? Having that special, again, that greeting, this how we speak to each other. We had all of that. I'm telling you, we had all of that back in the 7th and 8th grade through the amazing adult leaders and mentors that I had in that program. That is what creates that cohesiveness, right? Which ultimately leads to that program being wed together, right? Those young people forming these relationships that, Lord willing, will last them, hopefully, in some cases, for the rest of their lives. Oh, and this is another one, pro tip. Oh, get group names. Having each group, right? So if you have a group of 20 young people, you got 4 groups of 5. Each group should have a name. This is team, whatever, team brilliant or team awesome or team unique. That's really, really important stuff, again, to create that positive culture, right? To create that positive gang, to create that pride. That's what gives the group cohesiveness. Right, so let's reflect on this a little bit. Again, this is just the beginning. Read that group mentoring best practice supplement. There's also a really, really cool thing that you can download at the website. That is a checklist. Because the group mentoring supplement itself, we'll be honest, it's like 90 pages. This is like 80 pages, okay? Not everybody's gonna read the 80 pages, we get that. But the checklist though, the checklist is about 5 pages, like 4 or 5 pages. And it'll allow you to very quickly, at a glance, see what you're doing against what the best practices are, those recommendations, which we call the benchmarks, right? The benchmarks are like the need to haves. The enhancements are those that are promising practices that, we're still researching, but they're showing some really, really good stuff early on. So really quickly, which ones of these are you already doing? How's it working? Quick discussion, like 2 minutes, and then we're gonna show another little piece of this video. I wanna show one piece of this video just to demonstrate it. What can you implement right now? And which ones would you find most challenging to execute? Maryland Mentor Team, can we drop that link for Christy? Christy, we're recommending that you download the checklist and the full guide for group mentoring best practices. Right there, bada bing. So again, which of those best practices, some of the pieces that we just talked about, are you already doing and how's it going? Which ones can you easily implement now? And which ones would you find most challenging to execute?
Hi, it's Brianne from I Am Mentality.
Hey.
Hey, so I was thinking that would be best for us to utilize right now is having the young kids create a special greeting and then closeouts. I love the potentially like handshakes and different things of that nature. I think that is such a great idea. So I definitely want to incorporate that currently. And then I also like the group names because we have, the youth leaders separated by elementary, middle, and high school. So I want to have them, independently think of like group names to just come together and like unify. And I love how it's positive courtship.
Love it, love it. And then, right, then that's where you can get like, if you do some group t-shirts, then, their team names can be in the back of their t-shirts, so many cool things. Thank you so much, Brianne.
Yes, I love that. Group t-shirts, group colors, all of those things we can really like grow.
And all of that should be youth-led. Every piece of that should be youth-led.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Other thoughts as we move towards conclusion? Which ones can you easily incorporate? We just heard from Brianne. Right away, they're going to get on the rituals, the closing out, the handshakes to build more of that cohesiveness and pride. What else we got?
We do an evaluation for our students that are matched with mentors. I think having that be a more consistent basis and that isn't just season per season was definitely something I'm like, yes. And having it in that structured form where it was almost like a job interview or an evaluation, that way they can also get used to that process is definitely something that we're going to implement.
Right on, right on. What about, because I made a big deal about this, hopefully you all felt the energy in that one. What about the one-to-one check-ins though? What about the one-to-one check-ins for group mentoring? So important, folks. So important.
I should have clarified. The one-to-one was definitely the piece that we do surveys and stuff, but it isn't where it is a really one-to-one. It's usually just asked as a group survey form, and it isn't really maybe also allowing them the space to talk to somebody about it too.
That's right, that's right. Last couple pieces here. We are a couple minutes behind. Dakota, don't kill me. Reflections and safe sharing for mentees, right? These are some of the enhancements that we spoke a little bit about a little while ago, but the reflection and the safe sharing for mentees is what puts the mentoring in the group mentoring, right? This is the work that allows youth to be in a relationship with one another, right? And to create that, again, that safe space is really, really important. So having those consistent open discussions, peer-to-peer activities. So again, we're encouraging them to build with each other, not just from the youth to the adults. And then again, many groups, accountability partners, we talked about that already. Flexible, structured, youth-led activities. So the curriculum, again, we alluded to this, should not just be made by the adults. It shouldn't just be us, right? Young people should be directing what sort of activities, what do they want to, what guest speakers do they want to hear from? There might be somebody that's interested in a particular discipline. They should be leading a lot of that. And then again, implementing activities such as team games, board games, escape rooms, all of these different potential activities. And then lastly, equal opportunity engagement in terms of, actually there's one more, equal opportunity engagement. We spoke about this, right? Shy youth, we got to make sure that we're paying attention as much to who is speaking, to who is not speaking, to who is off in the corner or in the back versus who is up front. Doesn't mean that they're less engaged. It means that we need to engage them in a different way, right? So you compare a shy youth with more confident youth, or a shy mentee with a more outgoing mentor, and vice versa. Pairing a shyer mentor with a more outgoing young person, because again, we've not spoken a lot about it, but of course mentors are learning from these young people and learning about group dynamics from a young person's perspective. And then again, the safety and the belonging, critical, critical, critical. All right, so we're pretty much out of time. Dakota, let's see. We had another video. I just want to, it's actually not even in this video. You guys are going to get a copy of these slides, so no worries. Final thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, final thoughts, and then we're going to have you all take this survey, which as a matter of fact, please, we're going to pause right now. We need everybody to take this survey before we close out. Can everybody just take a moment? We need everybody to take a moment to take this survey before we close out. And then we have 2 more things to share, and then we're out of here. That's a tall order for 50 seconds left, but if you guys give us till 12:32, we're gonna be out of here. Do not log off. Can we drop the Survey Monkey link too in the chat box, team? All right, shout out to everybody that's staying to complete this survey. We really, really appreciate it. We take these surveys very, very seriously in terms of the topics that you guys want to hear from us about, feedback about how the session was for you, areas of opportunities for us to improve. Now, Olivia, if you type that in and we get the Survey Monkey link, then they could click it for anybody that hasn't already clicked it or pulled it up on their phone, just in case. Oh, that means we broke. That means okay. Thank you for that feedback, Hannah. I'm sure you were going to say that it was awesome anyway. So, I mean, no, just joking, just joking. All right, we need to fix that. We need to make a note of that our survey link is broken or inaccessible for those that have already taken. Okay. So it looks like it's a bust. We will follow up with a clean survey for you all. Please keep that same energy when you get the email though, completing the survey. Lastly, we have a few additional trainings coming up. Okay, never mind. Looks like we fixed it. Okay, we fixed the survey. We are going back. We lost some folks though. We're going back. Whoever from our team fixed the survey, good job. Meanwhile, we'll just put these up here. These are our upcoming events from Maryland Mentor. Awesome. How to create an effective community-based mentoring program with best practices. This is part of our Baltimore Children and Youth Fund collaborative youth development series next Tuesday. We also have a DMV mentoring programs meet and greet for any of our DMV-based programs. We recently merged and are on our way to officially expanding into Washington, D.C. So if you are a DMV-based program, tune in. Join us on next Wednesday to learn more about that merger and our coming plans in the DC area. We have a mentor wrap session, which is a mentor training. So again, if you have mentors and you want to put them in a position to just learn some more, get some more practical skills, that is next Thursday as well with Imagine Me Ministries. Lastly, we have a small group session for that creating community-based mentoring programs on Saturday. So that we're gonna have some breakout rooms and really get nitty-gritty in terms of program design. And then lastly, race equity and mentoring. I'm leading a conversation around race equity and mentoring on Tuesday, May the 18th. So anyone that would like to stick around, we are officially done, but if anybody else would like to stick around and has any closing questions or comments, we will stick around until 12:35. Really appreciate you all for being with us. Make sure you follow along on social media if you're not already following Maryland Mentor. And we really appreciate you all for being here today. Dakota, any final words for our people?
Nope, not at this time. You can show them our social media. There's a slide for that if you look that up.
Thank you, Brother Sheldon. Awesome, awesome.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
Okay, going once, going twice. Any final questions, comments? Thank you for being here, Brother Jeff. Okay, everybody, have an awesome rest of the day. We'll be in touch soon.